Hello and welcome to A Bechdel Dysfunction, a podcast that dissects feminist films directed by men and discusses whether they are helpful or harmful. I'm Cara Strover.
And I am Harry Anderson. We are two film school underachievers who are heaps good at talking about movies but not that flash at making them. We want to acknowledge that we're recording this on Wurundjeri land. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We also extend that to any other First Nations people who may be listening.
Today we're doing Kill Bill Volume 1, the fourth film by Quentin Tarantino, starring Uma Thurman as the vengeance-seeking bride. Silly rabbit, tricks are for kids.
Kill Bill, directed by Quentin Tarantino, written by Quentin Tarantino and Uma Thurman, starring Uma Thurman, David Carradine, Daryl Hannah, Michael Madsen, Lucy Liu, and Vivica A. Fox. After awakening from a 4-year coma, a former assassin wreaks vengeance on the team of assassins who betrayed her. Cara, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Why is this a feminist film?
The bride character, strong female protagonist, we always like. It's actually a very female-heavy, heavily led film. Most of the named characters are women, and the majority of the squad is women.
Get several Bechdel fights.
Yeah. Very, I guess portrayed as the very elite in a traditionally masculine sort of type of the cold-hearted killer assassination kind of thing. And I think once you dig into Tarantino's whole genre thing that he does, utilizing a female character in a very sort of traditionally male-dominated genre like the martial arts movie in Volume 1 and the Western in Volume 2. That's kind of an interesting way to play with types and gender. And also, to some extent, the revenge story is very male-dominated, but then also you've got the very female-dominated and whole sort of kettle of worms that is the rape revenge story, which is kind of analogous to this. But I guess it's probably that way. It's mostly playing with character types and just being very female-led.
What's your experience with this movie? I'm guessing you'd seen it before.
Yeah, so I remember the first time. I kind of remember the first time I watched this really clearly. I think I was year 9, so 14 or 15.
A great age to be watching this.
And I went to my best friend at the time's house and we watched it after school eating really good chips. I just remember that really specifically. That
Were they from Hot Wings?
No, they weren't.
Williamstown?
No, they weren't. They were from a fish and chip shop near the Safeway in Williamstown. I think it's called Fish Bites. And
is it still there?
I don't know. I think
it's to sponsor the pod.
I think it's a pizzeria now. Anyway,
rest in peace. Rest in bits.
It's a really back to the movie. Really good time. I think at the time especially it was sort of everything that I wanted it to be. I've watched it a few times since, and it's probably my favorite Tarantino movie. It's definitely the one I've watched the most.
It's so fucking cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the funnest. And having done a full sort of on a constant revolving wheel with Tarantino of when I'm okay with him and when I'm not, this movie this is kind of always the movie where when I watch it, I'm he's all right. And then I also just even before, I remember also really clearly when it was out in cinemas because the poster is really just ingrained in my brain. I remember being at Hoyt's High Point where they had these massive draping posters and Uma Thurman there in her.
I'm literally looking at it right now. It's fucking unbelievable. I remember having the exact same experience at the exact same movie theater.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee suit, the bright yellow suit, the samurai sword, and then there's this massive Kill Bill, and I'm yeah, I want to know.
Is that?
I want to know what that's about.
Yeah. Yeah, same. And I remember the discussion around it at the time because I didn't see it till years later because we would have watched.
It was R-rated.
Yeah, not for children. I remember the discussion around at the time that it was just absurdly violent. but I also remember like my parents going to see it and talking about it and saying that, yeah, it's pretty like comical violence. It's not too full on. But there's other shit that's in there that's extremely full on that gets more difficult to watch as the years go on, which I'm sure we'll get into very shortly. But yeah, what's your relationship with Quentin Tarantino films?
It's complicated, right?
Yeah, but take me back to like, you know, like teenage Cara. Like did this, like when was this the first Tarantino film that you saw?
Oh, was it? I think so. I remember I saw Inglourious Bastards for my 15th birthday.
Wow, that's see, like this is it was a good time to be watching those movies
at the Sun Theatre in Yarraville. I remember, because one of my friends I was like the youngest except for one person, and he couldn't come. He had to meet us afterwards because it was
shattered.
Anyway, I think I think I was a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember I saw quite a few. Like I've seen the Grindhouse double feature like more than once, a couple of times at the Astor, and I think I saw And I remember once in Year 9 Media saying that my favorite Tarantino movie was Death Proof, which was just like
that's so edgy, bro.
Exactly. It was literally just like I'm just gonna pick like so I picked the worst one. But yeah, I think I was a fan. Like, I think it's easier to be detached when you're watching it. So that his kind of like ironic, all style, no substance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say style again. All style, no substance style is very appealing for teenagers because I think that is the thing that you're kind of most bothered with, like at that time.
100%. It's just like it's the needle drops, it's the cool clothes, it's the witty dialogue, it's the crash zooms, it's the violence, it's everything that like a hormonal cracked brain open child wants to be experiencing at that time. So it's so appealing. And I was a super fan, like 100% super fan, like equally obnoxious by the sounds of it. I think my one was Rocking Reservoir Dogs. I think I threw that around in high school. As my favorite one because I saw him first. I saw his earlier work. I've known him for quite some time. But yeah, definitely why I wanted to get into making movies.
There's also a little bit of once you start sort of understanding it a bit more, especially with something like Kill Bill, which is so referential. When you're someone like us who's like these annoying movie nerd people and you start it can be a really good gateway into finding more. The one thing I would never say, one thing I will say, always commend Tarantino for is he is a huge lover of the cinema and he imbues kind of everything he makes with that love. And he is a really great resource if you're ever looking for new things that you might not have found. Like if you look up a list of references of Kill Bill and just pick a random movie, it will be sort of a bit obscure and kind of interesting. So there is kind of that avenue as well, which I sort of could feel a bit of an affinity for, like, because that's another thing that I think that you do when you're in high school. Like I made a movie in high school, which was just like a parody and just entirely referential. But I think that's kind of appealing.
What was yours called? Can I ask? Can I just derail you? What was yours called? I'll tell you what mine was called.
I really do. It was.
Do you want me to go first?
No. I'll go first. Okay, cool. As a sign of good faith. It was called Bad Bromance.
Nice. Did it have a Lady Gaga song in it?
Of course it didn't.
Okay, cool. Just curious. What was it about? Like, give me the quick rundown of it.
It was about. What was it about? It was about a zombie apocalypse and these two guys that live together and then one of them gets bitten. It was kind of the ending of Shaun of the Dead and then continued, and then the other one trying to continue their friendship after the first one gets turned into a zombie.
Nice. My one was called She Cops. It was just a trailer. But it was like in the vein of like blaxploitation Grindhouse. It was just like three of my friends who were ladies who were cops. That was the whole thing. And the tagline was estrogens never had so much authority. I'm so glad people are fucking listening to this shit. And
Yeah.
just getting total dog shit. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. I bet you it's on YouTube somewhere. I have a cameo in it.
You have a cameo in your own. That's well,
Tarantino, man.
Yeah.
I had to do it with the greats. Anyway.
But anyway, I just like to circle back. I think that that's a very
Why?
I think that that's kind of appealing to teenagers when, and this is going to sound so like bitchy, but when you don't really have ideas of your own and you kind of think, this is really cool, I'll just do this in another movie. So when you see like someone doing that on a very sophisticated and professional level, you kind of think, that's cool, I could do that. And then as I've gotten older, I've sort of been like, I don't know, man, do something else. But yeah, sorry, I'm trying to be like a bit more positive at the start.
I'm the same. Like
Also, I just wanted to like flag, because we've watched them in such close succession, I feel like Charlie's Angels doesn't kind of get like the credit as a bit of a primer for this movie.
You reckon?
Because like, well, I don't know, like Kill Bill is like a better movie and it's considered more art house and prestige, but like the fight scenes and like the wire work and also the use of music, you know, like it's definitely there.
Yeah, I'm touch and go on that. I think. Well, I mean, the concept came about.
Oh, I don't mean as like inspiration. I kind of mean more as like a kind of a cultural primer of like I don't know. Anyway, I just think there's a bit of a relationship there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's now that we're talking about the making of the film, how about we push into the people who made it? So, obviously directed by the big Q Stick, written as well, but also written by Uma Thurman.
Was it written by her, or just did they come up with the idea together?
That's what the legend is. So she has a writing credit. But yeah, the legend is that they came up with this story while on set in 1994 when they were filming Pulp Fiction. Obviously, Uma Thurman has a very adrenaline-fueled role in that film. So yeah, he put it off to make
Jackie Brown.
Correct. Totally escapes me, but that's probably his best movie. Anyway, never mind. Put it off to make Jackie Brown in 1997. Sat down to write this in the year 2000, the same year that Charlie's Angels came out. So that's why I'm a little bit skeptical, but I do understand where you're coming from. Went into production in 2002, shot both films back to back. Obviously, that wasn't the intention. That was a decision made in post for it to become two films. So originally it was meant to be one long film. The legacy of this film is shrouded in infamy as of 2018 with the sort of, I guess, you know, the coming about of the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein, who obviously produced this, being rightfully brought down. What have you found out about it whilst researching this?
Well, okay, so Harvey Weinstein, unfortunately, casts just a huge shadow over so much of the industry, and there's almost kind of nothing, like, it's hard to just be a fan of cinema without just encountering him. He's kind of everywhere. And very, you know.
He's made all our favorite movies.
He's made quite a, yep. Or, you know, he distributed them. I don't know.
Yeah. Touch and go.
So Miramax was the distribution company for Kill Bill and also, like, I think most of Tarantino's
I think all
films.
of Tarantino's films up until that point.
Well, actually, let's talk about the specifics of like the relationships in this. So Uma Thurman has made accusations of an attempted assault by Harvey Weinstein in the mid-90s, sometime after Pulp Fiction came out. I'm not sure the exact timeline. She managed to resist and then, you know, kind of dealt with this whole process of him apologizing and brushing it off and like having to continue this sort of much obviously different working relationship after that. And then there's also the aspect of Quentin Tarantino being aware of this to a degree, and also one of his former partners, Mira Sorvino, making accusations against Harvey Weinstein. So, you know, there's obviously an awareness there. It all kind of comes to a head in the filming of Kill Bill, like right towards the very end of the filming of Kill Bill in Mexico, when Uma Thurman is involved in a car crash,
on-screen car crash,
in a stunt driving sort of incident, which she is denied access to the footage of doesn't feel and feels that she's sort of put in a position where she can't pursue like justice or the correct recompense for that incident. And due to her personal history with Weinstein, feels that there's an element of malice to the whole situation.
Legal and emotional blackmail.
Yeah. So she comes out with this, sort of publicly comes out with this story in, I think it was 2018. 2017, sort of when Me Too like really kicked off. And there's these waves and waves and waves of accusations against Harvey Weinstein. Credible and with, you know, similar patterns of behavior. So Uma Thurman comes out with her own story. And then a few days later, there's Quentin's sort of reaction to the story, which we can get into a bit. So one of the key lines that I sort of took out of this interview with the New York Times was, when they turned on me after the accident, I went from being a creative contributor and performer to being like a broken tool. And I think she talks about in her Instagram post where she posted the footage, she posted it publicly after Tarantino tracked it down and finally gave it to her 15 years later, where she talks about it as sort of the most extreme form of dehumanization. Sorry, I don't know if I have anything like sort of intelligent to add to that. Like that she just kind of sums it up so perfectly there. Like just being reduced to, I am not an artist. I'm not your equal. I'm not a person in this relationship. I'm a thing that you use. And if I get broken, it's like you have no responsibility to me. It's like harrowing. It's a really harrowing read. Like this is one of the ones I particularly like remember when it came out. Cause I was keeping track of like Me Too quite a bit at the time. And yeah, like I remember this stuck with me, and I knew we'd have to talk about Harvey eventually. And here it is.
It's so disheartening because I don't know, they clearly, the two of them have such a strong relationship leading into this film, obviously coming up with the story together. And I know that Tarantino wrote it in New York while he was staying with Uma Thurman as well. So there was a lot of back and forth in the writing process. And it's like to be with someone and create something that entire time and have that connection, and then to kind of just throw it all away just for his own benefit. And sort of what I guess we didn't really say is that she was forced into doing this car driving scene despite saying that she didn't want to and felt uncomfortable. So she was pressured into the situation. Which
he disputes that. He doesn't phrase it of he pressured her to do it. In his, he did write a pretty detailed sort of response to it, or had a sort of detailed interview where it wasn't that I came in and I yelled at her and I bullied her into it, but it was that I came in a position of trust and I said to her, I've checked it out, it's fine. And then we made last minute changes and it wasn't fine. So that it was more, she trusted him and he didn't take, and her, well, I don't know, was her trust misplaced? I don't know if that's the right thing, but a scenario happened because of her faith in him to keep her safe, which he failed to do.
And now has chronic knee and neck injuries, I believe.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure, I mean, the way she talks about it, like she thought she was going to die, and she was concerned when it first happened that she wouldn't be able to walk, that she was paralyzed. The pain was so bad. So, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't kind of end there, does it? Because there's a few other things that came out not long after that in terms of Quentin's behaviour towards her, that in certain scenes, close-up shots of Uma Thurman being strangled, he did the strangling and also spat in her face.
Yes. So
these are things that happened in the film, but he took it upon himself to act these out, and there's a certain degree of discomfort that it's caused. I'm not 100% sure on like the details of it that made Uma feel so unwell, but it's clearly put her in an upset frame of mind. I wonder have you done any sort of research into that?
Yes. So after Uma Thurman's interview with the New York Times was released, Quentin Tarantino did an interview with Deadline where he goes into some depth, and there are pros and cons. I think he does it does show his deep remorse and I think genuine sort of love for Uma Thurman. I do think he still dodges accountability and he dodges responsibility, but that's another thing. But in terms of what you're talking about, so there's 3 sort of incidences that, actually 4, that mainly get picked up. There's the choking and spitting on Uma Thurman in Kill Bills 1 and 2. There's a scene in Inglourious Basterds where Diane Kruger's character is strangled, which he performed. And there's, actually, let's just leave it as those 3. I'll deal with the 4th one later. And his response to that was, Uma wasn't making that accusation. That wasn't part of the interview. That was kind of a piece of, like, people already knew that. Like, that was kind of a piece of trivia to do with the film, which had then been in this article reframed as of like an abusive relationship. So Deadline says, there's a little bit of build up to this, so we're talking about sort of the context and what the issue is. And Deadline says, Uma says in Kill Bill, Tarantino had done the honors with some of the sadistic flourishes himself, spitting in her face, etc. There seems to be a subtext of some anger or not treating a woman the way she deserved to be treated. Quentin Tarantino's response to this is very practical. Well, it was written in the movie that she got spat on in the face. And like, who was I supposed to ask to do it? Was I supposed to get Michael Madsen to do it? Was I supposed to get like a grip to do it? And then it was all this like, oh, we're going to use like fake spit. And then that didn't look right. And then and I was like, well, I'm also directing it at the same time so I can make sure the spit goes exactly on her face where I want it to go. And we had a conversation. I was like, I'm just going to do this like 2 or 3 times and we'll get it right. And then if you're not comfortable, we'll change it. And like, whatever, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I don't doubt that there are like gross things that happens in movies that actors and directors sometimes come to an understanding of, like, I understand this is part of the movie, so let's just do it. I think for him to like kind of play dumb in this way pissed me off a little bit about like, I don't get it. I don't get what the problem is. But I also, okay, no.
Those responses aren't outliers either.
No.
You know, like there's a litany of them throughout his film career. Like Spike Lee called him out in 1997 for his like appropriation of the N-word in his films, and he responded to that.
Well, people use the N-word.
There's a very famous insecure reaction on the Charlie Ross show.
Oh, it's
Charlie
always
Rose shows, rather.
Anytime he gets asked about violence in film, like
he gets super defensive and childish. Hey,
but I think what I find really interesting is like, okay, so in this movie, a guy's head gets cut off and the blood just spurts directly upwards. And, you know, it's,
where was your focus on realism at that
exactly.
point? Yeah.
Oh, we're going to fill condoms with blood and that's going to be the effect because that's how they did it in the 70s or whatever. And that's all about style and that's all about aesthetics. But, I want it to look real when you get strangled. So we'll just do it. I want it to look real when you get spat on. It's like, why in those moments does it need to be real when everything else in the movie is hyper stylized? Like nobody that's just kind of,
you can't have your cake and eat it too. I get it.
That's just kind of my feeling on it, that I'm sort of like, yeah. And if you do want it to be real, there kind of has to be a reason for it. And you don't take any time to sort of explain what that might be. It's just that like, oh, well, I wanted it to look real and I was the best person to do it. The other incident I sort of didn't kind of get, like, and when all this was coming out, Diane Kruger was kind of like, I don't know why everybody's dragging me into this. This was just a decision between me and the director. I never felt threatened or uncomfortable. And like, again, I totally respect that. A decision between an actor and the director of how they want to do a scene, like, that's fine. And you sometimes do dangerous things. But to me, it's kind of sus to be like, I think I should be the one to do it. Like, why not a stunt person? Why not like someone who is going to have more training and more like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not exactly by the books, is it?
There's just this one line from this article, like, okay, I need to find the context. And there became this narrative out there. Are these asshole male directors out of control? Can no one tell them no? At what price art? Owen Gleiberman writes a piece saying Quentin needs to say what he was thinking and what was on his mind when he forced Uma to get in that car. He says, I kind of agree with that narrative, except I didn't feel I was guilty of it. And that is just like kind of perfectly it. He's like, yeah. but not me though. Like,
Yeah.
and it's so kind of baffling because this whole article, like, he's really like, I think this whole Me Too stuff this article is kind of fascinating, like, on a sense of this completely denialist psychology.
I guess there is a painful and sad and all too similar story with a lot of victims don't feel the confidence to sort of explain their story and they feel isolated. Do you know if Uma Thurman felt the same way?
She has a really, like, I thought this whole article was just really impressive and well thought out. And just, she says this really brave thing, I thought, where, and this is a little long, but the complicated feeling I have about Harvey is how bad I feel about all the women that were attacked after I was. I am one of the reasons that a young girl would walk into his room alone the way I did. Quentin used Harvey as the executive producer of Kill Bill, a movie that symbolizes female empowerment, and all these lambs walked into the slaughter.
And what was that from?
That was from the New York Times article, because I couldn't actually get it on the New York Times. I had to get it from the New Daily because I had to read
bastards.
it. I had to read it on the New Daily because I'm not getting a subscription. So
we're not that snobby.
This is why Uma Thurman is angry by an interview with Maureen Dowd from 2018 in the New York Times. It's really kind of it's pretty insightful and interesting. Like, that's a pretty common thing. If you don't come forward and there are multiple sort of other survivors of the same assailant as you, it can be a pretty common thing to have a sort of like survivor's guilt of like, if I could have prevented this, which is just so tragic because it's like there's only one person who can prevent a sexual assault, and that is an assailant. And anyway, but I think it also kind of touches on, there's a little bit of like, this is sort of part of like Harvey Weinstein's strategy. It was how good Harvey is for women. If you want to be an independent rising star, like, you know, he produced Pulp Fiction, which had the Mia Wallace character, and he did like, you know, in Gwyneth Paltrow's career and all these kind of independent films. And there's an element of that who kind of feel like, oh, he must be good then. Like, he must be on the right side because he's making these independent films. He's making these arty films. He's making these films that kind of try and give good roles to women and try and bolster women artists. And that's all like a smokescreen. And that just provides him access, right? And I think that he's kind of come to that understanding of a role I don't like to say a role that she played in that, but like, because that's not how I would feel. Like, I can understand her feeling about the situation that way, but of like how she was used that way as a kind of shield.
Yeah, fucking hell.
I know.
It's a big one, isn't it? It's just so hard to even just talk about. But I guess, I mean, okay, do you want me to pull us out of this?
Yeah.
A funny quote that I found that sort of shows that Quentin Tarantino's insecure and defensive responses do not start or end with the Uma Thurman car crash.
Please.
Okay, so in 2009, Tarantino was set to appear on the talk show The Late Show with David Letterman. A few years prior to this event, David Letterman had interviewed a former unnamed girlfriend of Tarantino. Letterman joked about the relationship, questioning, why would a glorious movie star date a squirrely little guy like that? A couple of days later, Tarantino phoned Letterman, screaming angrily, and I quote, I'm going to beat you to death. I'm going to kill you. I'm coming to New York. I'm going to beat the crap out of you. How can you say that about me? Letterman offered to pay for Tarantino's flight to New York and let him choose his method of fighting, to which Tarantino determined it would be bats. However, Letterman never heard from Tarantino again until years later, when he came on the show to promote his new film, which would have been Inglourious Basterds at the time. The host approached Tarantino in the makeup room just before the show went live, demanding an apology. Tarantino was not forthcoming, but his publicists urged him to do it, and he begrudgingly apologized to David Letterman. Now, David Letterman's not a great guy, but that is a funny fucking story.
I mean,
it's hilarious. Just wear it, dude. It's just it's a comedy show. Like, little baby.
I think it's kind of, it kind of goes back to that teenage thing of like, everything I sort of liked about him as a teenager has now kind of made me realize how immature and like it's interesting because I was sort of thinking of Kill Bill as being like a sort of, you know, an art house kind of sophisticated like genre mix, but like I don't really think that's true anymore.
No, it's just a fun, cool movie, which is what he makes, which works in well to a lovely quote that we have from Roger Ebert, who, when reviewing this film, stated, "This movie is not about anything at all except the skill and humor of its making. It's kind of brilliant," which I think summarizes it perfectly. That has aged well, that review. Do you think the movie has aged well?
No, I feel like a lot of the stuff that hasn't aged well is like kind of deliberate and like a deliberate pastiche on sort of deliberate homages to other things.
Yeah,
so
because it's pretty fucking airtight, really. Like it's so slick. It flows so well.
Okay, well,
it's really strong filmmaking. Like there's no two ways about it. But like,
well, I don't know. Like, which do you prefer? The first
of the two, I think number one is probably better, but I have a big fondness for number two, which we'll get into in the next episode. Shock horror! This is a back-to-back episode recording.
Don't
I just have a particular fondness for the Michael Madsen sequence in the second one. I really, really like that one.
I was gonna say it's like second sort of weird Michael Madsen performance. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I just have a huge fondness of that. I think I just remember being up late one night on like a hot summer night, and like I was the only one up, and I was watching it, and I just felt really fucking cool, and I've just got a huge memory of that. I also watched the first Mad Max that night as well, so it was just like, yeah, I'm a cool fucking teenager, man. So I think I just think very fondly of it because of that. But I do have, sorry to get off track. I think one thing that has aged incredibly poorly is, and you can justify its importance in the film any which way you want, but the character of Buck and his whole operation. Yes.
So anyone who hasn't seen the film, I don't know how the fuck you've gotten this far into it, but hey, well done. After being attacked by the deadly Viper assassin squad at her wedding rehearsal, the bride goes into a coma for 4 years. And while she is in a coma, an orderly who works at the hospital that she is, in a coma in, is renting her body out to just random people who he finds to effectively, rape her. And I don't know, man, just watching that this time around, that felt so fucking heavy and unnecessary.
Yeah.
And look, he just seems like a guy who's very comfortable with appropriating quite traumatic shit. Without thinking of how that would affect people in real life. And I'm not going to complain about his violence. I think a lot of the violence in the film is justified, but there's something very sickening about this went through his head, like someone doing this, like this came up in his mind, like that someone could fathom making this operation. We all have weird shit that flies through our mind, but for him to be like, oh, that's entertaining, I'm going to action that and put it in a film is quite unsettling. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's also, it's kind of unnecessary at that stage because, I like to talk about it in simple like plot terms. She doesn't like take revenge on Buck the orderly, she kills him, but like it's not like a huge part of the plot, if you know what I mean. It's just like another bad thing that happens to her. Yeah, you don't really need it because the revenge is driven against the initial wrong of putting her in there in the first place, right? So it's just this kind of like, yeah, like if you were going to have it in there, you'd want it to have some sort of more impactful resolution than what it is, which is that she wakes up while it's happening, kills them both, and steals his car. Like, I feel like that's actually kind of the point of it, is that he wanted to have the line,
the pussy wagon
line, and like, I'm Buck and I'm here to fuck. Like, I really, like, he's like, that is gold. I need to get that in here somewhere.
The shit that he's saying it's really fun. This is definitely the first time that I heard the C-bomb in a movie.
Yeah.
And he uses it really liberally. And and it ain't cool. I don't know. It's coming from a really mean-spirited place. Like,
yeah,
it's quite disgusting. Like, everything that he says is very disgusting.
Yeah. But even like in this, like we were talking in the spit scene, like there's Bud and his friend who dug the grave. Like their conversation is quite degrading unnecessarily. Because I think that it's sort of, I think one part of the disconnect of that is like that this world, like the violence is so hyper real and aestheticized, and like so much of the world just does not look real, like in a way that I like, right? Like I noticed when she was on the plane that she had her sword,
the samurai sword.
But like not only did she have one, I think another passenger also had one. So like
in a post 9/11 world.
And then also like the scene where when she arrives in where Oren is, like after she's got her sword and it's almost this kind of cartoony way, like it's so stylized. And then you just have this very kind of blunt, crude, like what nobody else in the movie is talking like that. Do you know what I mean? Like all the assassins have this very like grand way of speaking.
And it's very quippy and
even aside from that, like all of the lines, like you and I have unfinished business, and like any more subordinates for me to kill. Everything that comes out of Bud's mouth is like fucking warrior poet philosophy. And then in the middle of all that, we've just got this gross, grimy, and it's like this doesn't fit in the world. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of just brings you back to this really uncomfortable reality. And it is very degrading, and
seems to be a bit of a pattern. All the stuff that is of apparent necessity to be very real is the grimiest, like most disgusting, and sticks out like dog's balls, man.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, that was very unsexy, but you know what is sexy? Lamps. That's right, folks. It's time for Sexy Lamp. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. There's a new theme song every week. It's great.
You're so talented.
Thank you. I have a podcast. You should listen to it. If you can replace any female character in your film with a sexy lamp and it will make no difference to the plot, themes, or story, you are a hack. Cara, who's your sexy lamp for Kill Bill Volume 1?
I think it's Sophie Fatale.
Same. Same. She gets the trophy in the mail, 100%. Tell me a bit about that character, if you can.
He's Lucy Liu's best friend and sort of right-hand woman in the, Yakuza. He's on the phone a lot. And that
gets her arm chopped off.
And she gets her arm chopped off. And then I think she might have fucked Bill at some point.
Yeah, that seems to be.
It's kind of his.
Seems to be the go. He likes to bone. Cool. This is. She's a sexy lamp. Her
ringtone is Old Lang Syne.
True. Weird. I don't understand. Do you understand the meaning behind that?
I think it's just distinctive. So she can be, that when it rings in the bathroom, we know it's her.
So the bride knows.
Yeah. It's all very, cool. It's all very functional. It's a very functional plot. I would just say also, I want to be a bit positive. Like, the scene in, is it called The House of Blue Leaves? That entire, like, basically second half of the movie, that's just this extended fight scene. It's amazing. And it
fucking rocks. Lucy Liu rocks. The whole crew rocks.
It blows my mind, like, every time I watch it. I'm like, this is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the use of music and I just think it slaps. Yeah,
the tension, especially with who's the actress in the school uniform? Is it the character's name Goju?
Gogo Yubari.
Yeah,
he was in what was that? Hold on, her name is Chiaki Kiriyama. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I never did Japanese. He was in Battle Royale.
True. Well, she is the exact opposite of a sexy lamp. She fucking rocks, man. Like that whole fight scene with the spiky ball and the chain when it goes through the table. Like,
And
awesome.
And I think it's, like that the extended like Warner, like the way that building is laid out, and they managed to just it's also good. And I also love the references. Like I think, you can be a real intense like film nerd and know every reference, or you can only get the gist of like, yes, martial arts movies of the 70s or whatever. And it works so well and it looks so cool.
Yeah, the crash sims are sick. When old mate runs out and there's a crash sim into his face and he just goes, ah!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like, I mean, I just feel like, well, isn't it what you said? Like, Jackie Brown's his best movie, and he didn't write Jackie Brown. Like, if he had somebody else kind of, creating some themes and ideas and a story.
Yeah, it's fucking cool. But you know what else is fucking cool? Statham swap out. Silly Rabbit, tricks are for kids. Every week, Cara and I get to swap out one character each from the films that we're reviewing to be played by Jason Statham. Cara, who's your Statham swap out for this week?
I didn't have one prepared.
Okay, all right. Well, I've got two for volume 1, and you can pick one to be your own. So I will do 2. So okay, the first one that all right, cool. Well, I'm going to throw these 2 at you anyway, and you can decide which one's best for me. Okay, so first one I have is Nikki, Veronica Gray's daughter.
What happened?
Cara's fallen back in the couch, and she's laughing.
What happened to the TV?
What happened to the TV, Mummy? Why is there glass everywhere? Isn't that funny? It's just like, so,
yeah.
Again, if you haven't seen it, Uma Thurman and the actress
Vivica A. Fox.
Vivica A. Fox, I read it at the top, but I've forgotten, having an incredibly choreographed knife fight in the lounge room of a suburban home. And they stop halfway through because Vivica's character's daughter comes home, gets off a school bus and walks inside. Now, wouldn't you love that little girl to be played by Jason Statham?
And then also to have Jason Statham just standing there after his mother, Vivica A. Fox, gets murdered. And Uma Thurman just says to him, if one day, if you're still mad about it, come and find me.
Well, apparently that's the plot for Kill Bill 3 if it ever gets made.
Yeah. I think we can live without it.
Yeah, but I would live with it if it was Jason Statham. I mean, it would be totally different. But anyway, the other character that I have is Charlie Brown in the aforementioned film.
Yeah. I think I was thinking Charlie Brown.
Yeah. So again, just a guy who's working at the restaurant where this giant machete samurai sword fight goes down. Bad for business.
Okay, I do have one.
It's harder for me to do lines because it's all in Japanese, but a guy who looks like Charlie Brown in full Japanese getup being played by Jason Statham, and
I'm sure,
dominant wife bossing him around. Quite funny.
I was gonna say maybe not Hattori Hanzo, but like his guy. He doesn't want.
Yeah, because you don't have to change the dialogue.
He doesn't want to.
I'm bald because I shaved my head.
He doesn't want to make the tea anymore. Like, yeah, maybe that.
I'm watching me soap operas.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. Is it Jason Statham like badly speaking Japanese as well?
Yeah, I think this is the problem. Is a lot of the swap outs are going to have sort of unfortunate racial implications.
Yeah, it's a bit like in Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery trying to speak Russian with a thick Scottish accent. Highly recommend. Okay, cool. Let's crack into the grading now. Every film that we review, we judge by 3 main criteria. 1, does it Fight Club? 2, does it Bechdel? And 3, does she make it? First of all, Fight Club, just for reference, if you're playing along at home for the first time, if a film has a reverse effect of what the filmmaker intended. So, example is something like Fight Club, basic ass film made by the great David Fincher that should have outlined mental health can be very difficult, made little boys want to punch each other in the head. Cara, does Kill Bill Fight Club?
Uma Thurman is definitely trying to empower women with this movie. I think she feels very strongly about that.
I think it does Fight Club because of, I think both of them Fight Club, spoilers for next week, because of how glorified and cool the evildoers look in this film, like particularly the guys. So like Buck and I Want to Fuck, like there's a certain, he's pumped up to be kind of cool and charismatic with all these one-liners and stuff. Like he's got very quippy dialogue, like, and even like, you know, the pussy wagon shit. Like it's like he's most guys would see him and be like, oh, fucking cool, pussy wag, and all this sort of stuff. Like, all these guys who are meant to be bad guys are kind of cool. And even in the anime sequence, like, I mean, I agree with your point because he's not really trying to say anything at all. He's just trying to be cool. But these bad guys who are sort of meeting judgment are all made out to be fucking awesome. And I think I can remember like watching this as a teenager and thinking all those guys were very fucking cool. So I didn't walk away thinking like, yeah, chicks are going to be fucking empowered by this. And 15-year-old boys are the target audience for this shit. So I think at Fight Club's very fucking hard. And it's taken me, I watched this movie, 15 years ago for the first time. And it's taken me 15 years to realize that it has that effect. So good luck to anyone who's not a film nerd.
Well, you've convinced me.
Again.
For the first time of anything.
Aliens.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm real smart.
I think, yeah, because it has his kind of immature mindset.
Having said that, it's very difficult. I can't dismiss the fact that like it's sort of in the same way as Charlie's Angels does. Like young girls watching this would see this and be like, oh yeah, that's fucking sick. I'm so glad to have that representation. So there's no taking away from that. But I'm just saying it Fight Clubs to the boys.
Yeah.
The straight cis white boys.
Well, she has like, Uma Thurman has like a quote, or like there was this interview with IGN in 2004 and she says, and it talks about how like she's established as a female role model. She has this line where she goes, I know that some high school girls were referring to defending themselves as saying they were going to do an Uma on that person. And I think that's funny. And you know, like it's like you
I guess that is Fight Club. But anyway, yeah.
But you can't, you can't dismiss that part. And I have to imagine as somebody who's, you know, a sexual assault survivor, that must have felt pretty great for her as well to think that people kind of took to her character that way. But
also to live the revenge daydream in a simulated environment, I think
might be quite cathartic.
That incredibly healthy, well, healthier than doing it for real. But yeah. I guess at Fight Clubs, but I'm not going to knock any like young girls seeing this for the first time and putting some pep in their step for sure.
The thing with Fight Club is fight clubbing is it's like that's kind of like that's sort of the audience as well. Like you kind of bring yourself into it and you take out what you want, and it's like what you say.
There's always going to be one.
Yeah, but then also like you just said it yourself. Like when you first saw it, you took something different from what you take from it now because you've grown and evolved. And I think everybody is capable of that.
Yeah, but I still look at Bill and I'm like, oh fuck, you're the reason I dress the way I dress.
Are you like serious? We'll save that for next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about Bill.
Well, we're setting it up. But yeah. All the guys, I just love the clothes. I love their shoes.
Okay.
I love their hair.
Okay.
They're all cool. It's fucked. Bechdel. It Bechdel's a bunch of times. There's some sweat ass Bechdel fights. Huge shout out to Lucy Liu in that final showdown scene. I think, yeah, I cannot stress how fucking awesome that is.
And pretty much Bechdel's like, well, not straight away, but like, yeah, even the minute she kind of storms into Vivica A. Fox's, that's not it. Now I forgot her name. Vivica A. Fox's house, like even they're immediately like chatting and not about a man. Yeah. So it's nice.
I love that scene where it's like coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like part one. I'm not as much of a fan as part two. So that's good. It's good to have a contrasting opinion.
I can understand. I understand that. It's not as, it doesn't flow as well. I think part one flows magnificently. There's no doubt about that. But does she make it? That's the real question.
Yeah, you know.
She's set up to make it.
Well,
it's the name of the movie.
She's killed, two people on her list so far. She's got a cool sword. It's pretty much a given where it's going. So I would say. And the great reveal at the end. Yes, that her daughter is still alive.
Yeah, buddy. Cool. All right. Well, I ask you this question every week. Is this movie helpful or harmful?
I don't know now. I'm going to say that it's helpful just because I'm kind of sentimental and I feel like the process and most of the experience particularly in the first movie, I think was great for Uma Thurman personally and her career. And also, like, I can't kind of get past, like, if there are girls out there who are able to see, you know, themselves as being warriors and not necessarily achieving vengeance, but being able to defend themselves and being able to be strong and successful in their own fields, whether it's an assassin or STEM. I think that's good, I guess.
Yeah, get out there and rock an Uma. Well, that just about does it for another installment of A Bechdel Dysfunction, a podcast that dissects feminist films directed by men and discusses whether they're helpful or harmful. Join us next week as we discuss Kill Bill Part 2. Kill Bill Volume 2.
Oh, yeah, it's very arty, isn't it? It's not
Yeah.
the sequel, it's Volume 2. Fuck yourself.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Catch us then.